Okay, I think we're live.
We are.
So it's always a mystery. And today I am joined by, how do you say your last name? I don't want to pronounce it
Oh,
incorrectly.
that's okay. It's like the Spanish greeting, Chao.
Oh, okay, that's how I would have said. And despite
Yes.
not knowing your last name, this is someone who I feel very close with. I have a tremendous amount of appreciation for. So, John Chow, welcome. Thank you for being with us. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Um,
Yeah, thanks for having me, Justin. It's great to be here.
Yeah, the best dressed guest in the history of the Tri Builder podcast. That's that's what I was expecting, and here you are, and you're certainly delivering. So yeah, like we've spoken at length in private, and I appreciate you so much, and I actually still feel like I don't barely have got started getting to know you. So I'm really excited to have this conversation and learn more about who you are, your story and stuff like that, and the work you do, of course. So
Mm,
John is a coach. I don't even know what words to describe you as. I want to start by kind of sharing my story of discovering you. So
yes.
real quick, as I started kind of believing in my podcast more and thinking about like aspirational guests, like, oh, maybe I'll just ask that amazing person if they want to be on and see what happens. And if they say no, you're not big enough, that's fine. And you were the first person that came to mind for that. So I'm really honored that you're here. And we had to reschedule a couple times to find a time for our schedules to line up. So here we are. It's been a little bit in the making, but I want to share my story of discovering you, which is I I'm really involved in the coaching space, of course, and I like to kind of check out what people are doing. And I jumped into a free open house with somebody that I follow on Instagram, a very flashy, dynamic, eye-catching individual named Alan Howard. And I got put into the hot seat of this open house. There's maybe 20 people there, and he's guiding me through this very powerful transformational process where my eyes are closed. I was going through a tough time at that moment in my life. And what I really felt from that was this guy's not doing it for the money because he's already succeeded and sold businesses. He's doing it for the love and the passion of this. And then he said, okay, so we're going to get you set up with a one-on-one call with John. I didn't even know who John was, and he'll talk to you more about what we offer here at the Path. And so then a little bit later, I jumped into a call with you, and that's where I met you. And I was like, wow, this guy is so amazing, and you helped me so much, and I'm so grateful for that. And based on that call, I was just like, I'm buying whatever this guy's got. And you never even pitched me or anything. You just helped me, and it was so transformational. And that was so incredible because I've had so many experiences where I've invested a lot of money and it was really bad. I've had free things that were kind of okay. I've paid for stuff that was good, and then that was like so amazing. And then you didn't even ask for anything, but I was like, okay, I got to work with this guy. So here we are. Anyway, I've been doing all the talking. Yeah. So John, how's it going? I know you're going back to Brazil this Sunday. So,
hmm
yeah, what's happening in your world?
Yeah, lots of interesting things. I think the universe is always guiding us to more areas of growth. And whether
Mhm.
it's meeting people, like you and I had a chance to meet, and that was a great growing moment. And so we are constantly in this state of like, what's next? Where is the universe going to lead? And for me right now, it's going back to Brazil for a couple of months and seeing what has in store for me, which I think is
Mhm.
really good. Going back onto the topic of coaching, though, I love that you've been in the coaching space for a really long time. And one of the things that I have made one of the things that have been really impactful for me as a coach was getting clarity on what kind of coach I am.
Mhm.
And, coaching is such a broad thing. Some
Yeah.
people are certified, some people are not. And some people, approach coaching with a certain methodology, others with their own. And for me, it was much more about getting the clarity of what is it that I do? What is the impact that I have? Because every person has a different kind of impact. And that's why I would
Mhm.
love that there's so many different kinds of men's coaches out there or coaches in general, because we
Mhm.
can all use, it's kind of like being in a tribe.
Mhm.
And in a tribe, there are many people, and a child doesn't just grow up with the two parents that they have. They grow up with other aunts and uncles and friends in the tribe, and there are multiple role models for them to look towards and learn from. And so it's the same thing with having different coaches in your life as well, because it
Mhm.
allows for you to get a different flavor and dynamic of things. And this means that um, for me, it is discovering my kind of superpower, should we say it, when it comes to coaching. And that is that I have this thing where I see people in a way that they don't quite see themselves that way yet.
Mhm.
And I believe in them in a way that they don't quite believe in themselves in that way yet, and spend
Mhm.
time with them to nurture that until they start to see themselves the way that the world, or me see them. And they
Yes.
start to believe in themselves in the way that we see them. And the story that kind of reminds me of this is I have a really good friend who I was able to dress for a wedding. And he was actually my brother's friend first. He's my brother's age. He's a little bit older than me. And I've always looked up to him. He was like a big brother to me. And when it came time for his wedding, I used to be in the fashion industry. And so he was like, John, I want you to dress me for my wedding. I want you to help me make a custom suit. And so we go through the process of all of that.
Cool.
And at the end, when we were talking about accessories, he said, oh, I really want to wear suspenders to my wedding, but I don't think I can pull them off, not the way that you do, John. And I looked at him straight in the eyes and I said, Jeff, if you see you the way that I see you, you would realize that you can pull off whatever the fuck you want to pull off.
Wow.
And it just dawned on me in that moment that even people who I view are very confident, they themselves internally may not have the same view of themselves. And
Mhm.
so I appreciate being able to have the gift now of being this mirror that I get to hold up to incredible people like yourself and say, hey, this is who I think you really are. And let's work on you seeing that more and coming into your power and going off and doing the thing that you do that impacts so many people.
That is such an incredible story. And also you seeing, appreciating the human being for who they are and seeing the higher level version of them as well is so true. That is exactly my experience with you, is like, okay, this person sees me, sees my gifts, my abilities, and there's that balance of really loving who we are now, as well as the evolved version of us, that where we're getting to, like,
Yeah.
because part of that is like, could be, oh, maybe I'm not good enough, I need to be better. But it's both. It's recognizing the amazing beautifulness of the person in the moment, as well as their potential. And that's exactly when you said that, that's exactly my experience with you. And I love that story of um how you shared that with the friend that you were dressing for his wedding, because you I know that fashion is a passion of yours, and it's part of your professional background. And so I think that moment kind of brings it all together. And you've brought the fashion, the aesthetics with you into the coaching, which at some point, I guess you kind of transitioned out of the fashion world largely. Maybe you're still involved somewhat, and then into coaching. What was that like? What made you kind of do that pivot, or however you define that change in your life?
It was interesting. I didn't even really realize it when I was doing it, but when I worked in the fashion industry, so much of how I operate. I'll give this really silly example. If you look at the bookshelf beside me, my books are color coordinated. because
Oh
that's just
yeah.
how I think. And so if you were to ask me where a particular book is, I would know exactly where it is because I think of the color of the cover.
Oh.
And so when it comes to the way that I view the approach of things is kind of from that perspective. And me working in the fashion industry was so much less about what brands were per se, even though I worked in luxury, but it was so much like, how can I help this person dress in a way that's expressing themselves how they want to? Because, and the reason why I bring up the book organizing a certain way is because my expression of who I am is oftentimes in how I dress.
Hmm.
And so one of the ways that I express myself that morning or that day is I feel whatever. I look at my closet and be like, oh, I feel this today. Like this is the representation of my feelings
Hmm.
and or my mood or whatever that might be. And I also know the power of wearing something that just like you fits you like a glove. And then I can have the worst day and then I can put on a perfect blazer and just be like, oh, I'm ready. I'm ready to go to that
Mm.
next event and show up
Yeah.
and like wear my shoulders a little bit broader and have my chin a little bit higher because of that. And so my time
Mhm.
in the fashion industry, surprisingly, was very much related to helping people understand who they are and, helping them feel that much more confident for that date that they're going to go on or whatever it is because of what it is that they got to wear by spending time with me. And there was also a very insidious side of it just never being enough, of wanting more, of feeling like, oh, what's the next thing? What else can I like? It was a thing that was satisfying a void in my soul.
Mhm.
And I realized that that wasn't healthy and it wasn't what I really desired. And so I went on a soul searching quest to discover more of me and my masculine essence. And um, coaching became just a very uh, hmm, natural thing that had happened when I was phasing out of the fashion industry. People enjoyed the conversations that they were having with me when they were shopping with me. And they realized it was never about the clothes, but about who they were becoming in the process of that. And
Mm.
that was just became a very natural transition into coaching.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. There's a phrase that I love that's like, when I look good, I feel good. When I feel good, I do good. And I've had different chapters in my life where I was very kind of focused on my looks and or my presentation, my wardrobe, and then other chapters in my life where I it wasn't the focus. And it's really fun and it's amazing when you're out in the world and you just feel like $1 million. You feel like you look sharp. And so I know how much that can affect kind of the self relationship. And
Hmm.
then also there's like sometimes people when they come from a background of scarcity and struggle and then they become successful, they kind of will dress up with a lot of bling and stuff like
Sure,
that.
want to show.
They
Yeah.
want to, and then people that are, yeah, I just heard something, rich rich people scream, wealthy people whisper, or something like that. And it's like once that's fully integrated, that self
Yeah.
relationship, that knowingness of the status or whatever, I think there's maybe a less of a desire or a need to express that on the outside. And then people still want to look good and feel good, but it's a little bit more subtle.
Well, I mean, let's just take it's no different than how we are internally. If
Mhm.
internally we feel very insecure, then what's the thing that we're likely to broadcast externally? Of overconfidence,
Overcome. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so it's like whatever it is that we lack, that we are worried that people would actually see, then we try to portray something of the opposite.
Mhm.
And then sadly, a lot of times people can tell that there's some overcompensation that's happening and that confidence is
Mhm.
not real confidence, it's just a front. Whereas if you look at the guys who are really confident, they're not making a scene. They're not trying
Right.
to show people that they're confident. They're not needing for people to see them. They feel very much comfortable in where they're at, but their aura
Hmm.
is so strong that you can't help but to notice them because they're
Hmm.
like the silent assassins in the room.
Yeah.
And so everything really internal is represented externally, whether it's, money, right? And so we were talking about this just now. You mentioned a great point. The people who have maybe less wealth, they want to wear the bling, they want to wear the Louis Vuitton, they want to show people that they have money because they're afraid of people not knowing that they have money.
Hmm.
And, in the fashion industry, it's the same thing. Luxury is not Louis Vuitton, Gucci, and Prada. That's a certain level of luxury. When you get to
Hmm.
real luxury, it's Loro
Hmm.
Piana and Brunello Cucinelli and these brands that have no logos on them.
Yes.
And you would never be able to tell that they're wearing those brands, but the brands themselves are so elevated that it's just wild. So, for example, in their running shoes or in their walking shoes, the laces are made from cashmere. And like
Nice.
a sweater is like $5,000 or whatever that might be. It's
Yeah.
not about the cost of it, it's about the quality of it. And the
Hmm.
quality is so well done, and there's no need to represent what the brand is. It's that kind of quiet ness that you're talking about, the
Hmm.
how wealth whispers. And
Yeah.
so similarly with us on the inside as coaches, are we out there with bravado, trying to tell people how great we are so that they can come work with us? Or do we just know the value that we have and we're so solid in it that we don't mind giving of ourselves for people's growth and development without wanting something in return? Because people know what's good and what's not good.
Hmm.
And there's no need to declare to the world and try to do something to attract them. They'll come because they know what's good. And we can sit in our confidence that way.
Yeah. So it's kind of like you went from helping people transform on the outside with their aesthetics, their style, their fashion choices to transforming into a luxurious inner world,
Yes.
inner relationship. Yeah. What are some of the elements of creating to use this metaphor, kind of a luxurious inner self relationship or whatever, like this self-esteem, core beliefs, like what are the key elements that are kind of the coaching equivalent of kind of like the colors, the cut or whatever, if
Hmm.
you know what I mean.
Yes. I think one of the things is massively important is connection with self. When we
Hmm.
know who we are and we know what we're made of, then it doesn't matter. We don't no longer seek the external validation of it.
Hmm.
And also, if there's external criticism, then it doesn't rock us because we're not dependent on that.
Yes.
And so a great
I've
example of that would be like the people who, drive a Porsche. They don't care if people are hurling insults at them about how bad their paint job is or color job or whatever, like how bad,
Yeah.
because they're like, you have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, what a
There's a
silly person.
Yeah, there's a knowingness of like,
Mhm.
okay, like, you have no idea what this car is, and you're making fun of it because of whatever. And there's like a meme that's going around, and it's this kid who drives like a Mercedes with like a V10 in it.
Okay.
And and then there's a Porsche beside it, and it has a V6. And the guy's like, "What's wrong with you? Why do you only have four less cylinders than I have? Like, I'm gonna smoke
Hmm.
you." You do
Hmm.
you like why did you spend how much money did you spend on that car? I spent like half and look at how much more that I have. And there's just this lack of understanding. And the guy who owns
Hmm.
the Porsche, they're like, okay, buddy, good for you. I'm so glad you
Yeah.
think that. There's just not
Yeah.
an ability to be rocked by externally what other people say because he knows who he is.
Yeah.
Similarly, from the personal development space, it's like I know who I am. So much so that if people are criticizing me in some ways, trying to pull me down or trying to make fun of me, or they don't see what it is that I'm working on and they're doubting me, then there
Hmm.
isn't that like, oh man, like what am I doing? All these people are saying all these things. Imagine if a guy did that. Imagine if a guy who owned a Porsche and everybody around them was like, what a piece of junk. Then he'll be like, oh, I guess I bought a piece of junk. That would be silly.
Yeah.
So similarly, it would be very silly for us when we know who we are to then be affected by the lack of vision of everybody else around us when they don't quite see, because we live in the 3D world. And so
Hmm.
people will believe once they see the results of it. Very few
Hmm.
people will believe when you're just telling them what something is. And
Hmm.
as people who are builders, we're constantly in the building phase a lot of times. And it means we don't have necessarily have something to show for others to see. But if we know who we are and we don't get distracted and we keep building and we keep grinding and we keep putting effort behind it, what it is that we believe, then something will come one day, and then people will be like, "Oh, that's what you were trying to do."
Yeah.
But we don't care. We don't care for their validation, or we don't care for their criticism because we know who we are.
Nice. I had an experience last night. So in the past, I used to make websites, and
Mm,
I still basically know how to do it.
hmm.
And I don't really do it anymore, but I'm making an exception. I'm helping a friend with a website, and
Very cool.
I went to visit him last night, him and a girl that works for him.
Mm,
We were sitting in the living room looking at what I'd come up with, and they're kind of pondering, thinking about critiques and things they can add to it. And I'm sitting there kind of just waiting to hear what they have to say. And it's not the greatest website in the world. It's not really my professional focus anymore. I'm just kind of helping them out. So no pressure. But if this was, gosh, I can't believe how long it's been. If this was 20 years ago,
sure.
when I was a kid and I was just starting out, and maybe I was talking to some big shot business people, and they're looking at what I'd created, kind of scratching their heads, thinking about criticizing it, I would have been so squirming and
Mm,
uncomfortable and afraid and fearful of their rejection, or that they weren't happy or something with that. But because one, I know that my work is quality. Two, it's not really even what I do.
yeah.
Three, I know that they don't really understand web design that well, so they're just kind of doing their best. So it's just a self relationship and a relationship to the moment that's much more comfortable
Yeah.
from knowing myself.
Mm,
And it just kind of changes the frame of what we're
yes.
experiencing.
Yes. And
Yeah. So sorry, go ahead.
One, I think this leads to another very kind of relevant point between luxury and, let's say, personal development is luxury isn't luxury because it's just expensive. It's also expensive because of the craftsmanship that goes into it,
Hmm.
the amount of time and dedication and work that is put into this piece of art that you
Hmm.
get to wear on your shoe feet or that you get to carry or whatever that might be. And so it's the same thing with like us, who we are as a person. It doesn't just come overnight. There's no
Hmm.
such thing. I mean, we live in this world now where you can just fork over $1,000 and buy something luxury. But in reality,
Hmm.
the creation of that took time and hours upon hours of work of that type of thing. It's not just a cheap thing. We can't just buy personal development, be like, I'm going to pay somebody,
Hmm.
and then now all of a sudden I'm going to have be this amazing person. No, it's that work that is done
Yeah.
behind the scenes that nobody is seeing. When you look at something and it has a tassel on it, the hand hours that it required for that person to create each strand of the tassel, that is our shadow work. That is
Hmm.
the inner work that we do so that we are luxury at the end of it, so
Hmm.
that we are
Yeah.
a piece of beautiful work at the end of it. We are our own craftsmanship at the end. We are our own masterpiece. And we
Yes.
become solid because we know the hours that have been put in, right? So it's
Yeah.
very different than the people. It's no different than the people who are doing things for the shortcut and they just have insecurity because they know that they took a shortcut. And the people who
Hmm.
did it properly and they just feel solid because they know that they put every single ounce of blood, sweat, and tear into that thing. And it's just all about not being rocked. And we have the ability to not be rocked when we really put ourselves in.
Yeah. What was that phrase you just said? Bliss, wear and tear or something? What
Oh,
did you say?
blood, sweat, and tears.
Oh, blood, sweat, and tears. Okay. Yeah,
Hmm.
totally. Totally. Blood, sweat, and tears. So I think it was like last week, I wanted to dig up an old photo of myself and uh George St. Pierre, a very famous athlete for
Yep.
maybe because I wanted to do a post about him
Cool.
and so I ended up going through photos of like kind of the last dozen years of my life,
Yeah.
three relationships, and seeing my personal evolution. And sometimes I look
Wow.
at myself in the mirror and I go, "Oh my God, I'm so old now."
Yeah.
But then also the my presence and my body language and it's it's more luxurious, to
Hmm.
like it's the next level, even though maybe I'm compared to 10 years ago, like maybe aesthetically or whatever, it's like, okay, I was younger and more beautiful, maybe, but the presence, the energy is like there is
Yes.
that work or that process of the personal evolution, the healing. You mentioned like the shadow work and um maybe that has been part of my journey if, without me necessarily using that word shadow work, although I have been exposed to it in recent times through like a men's group I've been a part of. um what has what have you found are is the way to kind of cultivate that knowing yourself and to the so you're not rocked by kind of the external stuff like we've been talking about? What are the most effective, or what's the journey to personal evolution?
Hmm. I would definitely say like having a thing, whether it's a routine or something that you're putting work in every day. So
Mhm.
whether it is like meditation or something like when we put in the work that it requires for us to do what we call the work. So the work is looking within, self-analysis, self-reflection, a willingness to really be open to, like Einstein said, right? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result.
Mhm.
And so how do we then look at ourselves and be like, what are our patterns? What are the things that we're
Mhm.
doing over and over and over again that we're expecting this different result with, and choosing to break certain patterns?
Mhm.
And that also means opening ourselves up to others, being in a community, being in a tribe, and
Mhm.
being willing to be examined by others, having people hold us accountable for the things that we want to work towards. You know, whether if there are people who are listening right now who are smoking weed or they're still addicted to different things and you want to get off of that, great. Willpower is awesome. I believe in you. And at the same time, let's add some accountability in.
Mhm.
And then when we're doing the work and we're keeping ourselves accountable and where others are holding us accountable and we're get through something like that, then it's like, holy shit, I just did that. You know, whether it's a guy who's been smoking weed for 15 years and all of a sudden he stopped doing it, or addicted to porn for 10 years and stopped doing it, or whatever that might be, the ability to have self-mastery in
Mhm.
some way and have a certain level of like, I wanted to do this, I wanted to accomplish this, and I did. No, nobody can take that away from you.
Mhm.
Nobody can take away our own accomplishments and our feeling and sense of accomplishment and our feeling and our sense of knowing that we can do something hard.
Yeah.
And so I would say definitely one of the things that is really important for us when it comes to developing a personality or a person who doesn't get rocked is how many hard things can we do? that, of course, we stack over time, right? Like nobody's telling you to go and like climb Mount Everest right now. That wouldn't make any sense. But like, what is hard for you? Is it
Mhm.
doing 100 burpees every day? Is it, going to the gym 3 times a week? Is it making sure that you're eating more disciplined? What's hard? And when
Mhm.
we can keep that up for a certain period of time, be like, holy shit, I did that. I did
Yeah.
that and I can do that, which means I can do more.
Mhm.
And so I think a great challenge for everybody who's listening right now is do a fast
Oh,
and
wow.
start with
Yeah.
a 24-hour fast.
Mhm.
And it might be so miserable the first time you do it. And then, but you do it and be like, oh, okay, I got over the 24 hours, right? And then extend that to 48 hours after that. And then
Yeah.
extend that to 72 hours after that. And if you can do a 3-day fast, then be like, wow, I just did something that I never thought I could ever do, not eat for 3 days. What's going on? Obviously, we can talk about the benefits of all the things related to fasting and this and that, but I'm also talking about like mental fortitude and the ability
Mhm.
for us to be able to do hard things, know we can do
Mhm.
it, and then be feel like we're up to the challenge to do something else. That's
Yeah.
not just a masculine thing, it's also a self-development solidness thing.
Yeah, totally. That's so true. I think it's cultivating willpower as well as maybe like eliminating the self-sabotage that gets in the way of expressing the
Yeah.
willpower and the
Yeah.
self-mastery.
Yeah.
And you were talking about like overcoming stuff like porn and weed and addiction and stuff like that. And those kinds of patterns are so prevalent. And I know I've had my struggles and experiences with I kind of like coping mechanisms to
Mm.
deal with anxiety and depression. And it's like
Yeah.
we're kind of all the same with that stuff. Like there's like a lot of people keep those things secret, but
Hmm.
it's kind of part of the human experience. And when I've broken free from things like that, it's just like, thank God, because it
Mm.
worked for me. It felt like it worked for me for the time. And then, but then when you can break free from that, it's like, I don't ever want to go back to
Yes.
like smoking weed all day,
Sure.
every day, and
Yeah.
then to go to not smoking,
Hmm.
and then having a joint with a friend like on a Sunday afternoon and go, okay, this feels good, but I how could I live like this? Like, thank God I'm not trying to go through life like this. This is crazy. And
Hmm.
in a prior conversation, we were talking about cooperation amongst men, and that's how I literally just quoted this in something I just posted in my Facebook group. That's how we hunt and kill a woolly mammoth.
Yes.
One man cannot
No.
hunt and kill a woolly mammoth alone, but a coalition of
Yes.
allies can do
Yeah.
it. And a coalition of allies is so powerful for the inner battles, the inner struggles, and
Yes.
you were talking about accountability and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I want to interrupt really quickly and just talk about this
please.
phenomenon because I think we've been heavily misled in the last couple of decades of this idea of lone cowboy, lone wolf. I'm a man doesn't need anybody else. If you look at nature, that's not true at all. The idea of a lone wolf is actually a complete misrepresentation of wolves. What
Mhm.
wolf is a lone wolf? No wolf is a lone wolf. They
I
all
think
hunt.
they die if
Yes.
they get kicked out of the pack. They don't last very long, I don't
No,
think.
they're packed animals. They
Hmm.
hunt in packs.
Yeah.
They don't do shit on their own.
Nope.
And same thing with lions. If you look at one of the best documentaries of lions, it's called The Sands of Sabi. And it is
Oh, I'll
this
have to check it out.
coalition. Yeah, it's this seven, I think it was five or seven, lion brothers. And I think it was five. And they just like seven male lions in a coalition together created the largest dominant territory of a piece of like Africa or whatever it was for an extended period of time that no lions have ever had.
No way. That's
And
crazy.
so it's like, what are we talking about here? Being a lone wolf. What are we talking about? This masculine, solitude and men don't need help by other people and we do it on our own. And it's all complete bullshit.
Yeah,
Men
it
are
is.
designed to be in tribes,
Yeah.
not just for hunting, but for rituals, for sitting by the fire and talking, by, like the only place that I'm just going to put this out there as a context. Why is it so important for men to be with other men? Because the world is not a forgiving place. It's not a forgiving place. And women are not a forgiving place.
No.
And we don't get to show up in the world really in our feminine. We don't really get to show up in our relationship with women in the feminine. The only
Mm,
time that we can actually show up in our feminine is with other men.
mm,
So when we're in distress, when we have a problem, we're in our feminine. It's chaotic.
mm-hmm,
Anytime we're in our chaotic energy is in the feminine.
mm-hmm.
Imagine going out into the world with that energy. Boss, I just can't today. Like, oh, all this stuff. My client, oh, I just have so much going on today, and like how hard life is, and just like no, you get fired. You
Yeah,
tell
we'll
you
get
tell
eaten alive.
you tell your woman that she's gonna leave you as she should.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not that we're not allowed to have those feelings, is where do we place those feelings? Where do we go with those feelings? And the place that we go for those feelings is the tribe of men that we are around. We bring our feminine energy to them. We bring our problems, we bring our chaos, and then the men together work to diffuse it, bring us back to a place of homeostasis, and then we go out and back into the world as our masculine because that's
Hmm.
who we are.
Wow.
And it's
I never
so
thought of it
important.
like that.
It's so important. It's why we have a thriving community of men right now. And
Hmm.
there's just no, like, this is how things have always been meant to be for men historically. We've just lost that in the modern narrative of the modern family or, structure or the modern societal and friend structure. People have never been more isolated. I believe it's a
Yeah,
kind of psyop to
yeah,
cause people to be lonely and sad and controllable.
yeah, that makes sense. And I think I see similar dynamics geared towards other demographics where the cultural narrative is encouraging them to be a certain way that I feel is kind of destructive and not in their best interest or anybody's best interest. And I can objectively think, oh, I think they'd actually, that's not really their true self. They'd be better off another way. But it's being directed at us men as well. And we've seen portrayals in movies and stuff like this. And even the phrase lone wolf traditionally is kind of suggested this strength, this independence, this lack of neediness. And but yeah, it's not true at all. And I want to get into what you guys are doing. With you said you've got a thriving group of men, and absolutely, excuse me, I feel like I'm going to sneeze. I'd love to, and I've been exposed to it and I'm looking to get more involved when the time is right very soon. And for the listeners, what do you guys have going on?
So you mentioned Alan Howard recently. Alan Howard is the founder of The Path, of the men's
Mhm.
community and program that I'm a part of. And I joined at one point as a client because I
Oh,
was
no
going
way.
through my own journey of discovering more of who I am and really tapping into my masculine essence. I actually met Alan at a Joe Dispenza retreat on the very last meal of the very last day.
Oh,
And
cool.
this was literally 2 years ago. It was September of 2022. And I met
Oh,
him and
no
I'm
way.
like, yeah, I met him. I'm like, who is this guy who just
Yeah.
exudes masculinity? And
Yeah.
so I hopped on a call. I sold myself into the program and I participated, had a massive transformation, myself, and it's a group program, and so I saw other men also go through transformation. And I basically reached out after and I said, I'm already a coach. I predominantly coach women over 45. That's another story for another
Hmm.
time.
Okay.
But I don't see anything more valuable than what it is that you're doing right now, than helping men become who they were meant to be and freeing men from the slavery of the entrapment of their mind, and social expectations and all this other stuff. And so I volunteered for a while, supported,
Okay.
and then was brought on in as a partner to the business to coach with Alan. And so Alan's
Hmm.
very much the front person on the face of the company, as he should be. And then I'm in the head of transformation, and I coach together with him. And I
Hmm.
do strategy and everything behind the scenes, as well as um, going through the groups and leading the groups together with him. So we have a program. It's called the Foundations, and essentially, I would say we don't have places in the world right now where boys can learn how to become a man. There aren't the same spaces and rituals and relationships and role models that really help boys or men learn how to be a man. And there are a lot of men right now who feel very lost. They have no idea what it is to be a man and to have their direction and have their mission and be able to attract a woman and hold a relationship and be his own leader for himself and his leader for another person and for a family and all these things. And the foundational elements of what it means to be a man is just completely lost. And so we have the Foundations program, and it's really for you to discover yourself as a man, who you are, what you're capable of, and unlock this line inside of you that is able to go after what you believe you can go after, because you now see yourself clearly and have shed the conditioning that had been put on you for a very long period of time. And it's a
Hmm.
very transformative process. And we've had extremely high success rate of men who've gone through them, and they're just different. And what happens with that is that the guys who go through the program somehow just feel a lot more clarity with business, and they start to make more money. And
Hmm.
somehow they just feel a lot more solid with who they are, and they're able to attract higher quality women. And
Hmm.
somehow they just feel like they really know who they are, and their body is just they work on their body more, they take care of it better, or they have a sharper mind, or they have the courage to go on more adventures, and just they're living the life of who they wanted to be for so long now, for themselves. And the results are just so cool. And we have this extended community of guys who've gone through the program so that we all know what each other are made of and have been pushed and gone through the same thing. And we have them in smaller groups where they continue to have that accountability and relationship building. Every quarter, they're put together with four other men, and
Hmm.
they just have the ability to do life together. And then, of course, we do large group calls where they get myself and they get Alan, and we lead them through the cutting edge of whatever it is that we're going through right now. And then we also
Hmm.
hold space for them to continue to integrate what they've learned into the everyday life. And if they have a problem, then they show up and we do a hot seat with them, and we continue to pour our love out into this group of men.
Nice. Yeah, I follow you and Alan on social media, and I've been following your adventures together in Brazil. I know you're back in Toronto at the
Hmm.
moment, but you're going back shortly. And I've seen some of the other men in your tribe, and just super high level guys, like killing it in business, very influential in terms of building an audience, in great shape physically, really, really high caliber. And then also following the adventure you guys are having in Brazil, going on yachts and stuff, and having women around that are really beautiful, but the vibe is like these are women that have stuff going on. And I live in Latin America, and I've spent a lot of time in different parts, and um there's sometimes like they're really interested in seeing what they can get because they know they're beautiful, and they know that us people from Canada and North United States have money, and there's often kind of a very reciprocal relationship going on, or not very transactional relationship going on. And it's just abundantly clear that these are women that they're true friends of you guys. They have stuff going on. Everybody is enjoying each other's company, and it's awesome to see. And so I met Al, not really met him, but I was in the hot seat with him before I ever met you, and then I met you, and I've gotten to know you more. And I um I imagined like I feel like he's been influenced a lot by you in his methods and his processes, because he was taking me through the hot seat. And then I imagined, and who knows, maybe this is all just mental chatter, but you guys are very your approaches work great together, and I think there's some overlap in some of the methods you're using with I shared my experience of you helping me, and somebody was like, "Oh, I think that's timeline therapy." I don't know if that was or not, but I feel like you guys use some same techniques, and you kind of cultivate your craft together. And what's that like, where you guys are studying Joe Dispenza together and working together, and what's the process of kind of bringing in new methods and bouncing ideas off of each other?
I think it's the most beautiful thing that men get to experience in community, where like, why are we in community? Imagine us trying to all read the same books. It would take
Hmm.
forever for us all to read all the books. But if there
Hmm.
were five of us and we said, hey, you go read a book and you go read a book and you go read a book, we're going to all come back and we're going to share what we learned from the books, then all of a sudden we all just read five books that much faster.
Hmm.
And so we all have our inclinations of what we feel interested in. Alan does a ton of exploration and he has worked with a lot of different world-class coaches and he exposes to himself to very, very high level people. And I have interest in I'm a master practitioner in NLP and hypnosis and all the things related to that. And so some of what we did do together was related to NLP. And I love studying Kabbalah and doing
Oh,
things
cool.
related to human design. And like there are a lot of different things that we personally have interest in that the universe pulls us towards. And then we get to bring it back into the tribe. And we said, hey, this is what I learned. And we then people can take on what it is that applies to them and are helpful. And then the motto that we have at the path is a rising tide lifts all boats.
Hmm.
And so when we all bring something into the community, then the community grows that much more and that much faster. And I really believe this is how men are meant designed to be together.
Yeah, it's so true. Like, um, I can read a book and somebody else can read a book and we can have a conversation. And I'm a slow reader, but like I understand it very well when I read. But that can be transferred, that kind of knowingness or something. The effects, the effects of studying that can be transferred
Hmm.
to the person you're collaborating with in this weird way, because sometimes when we study something, it's about the our own thoughts that it
Yes.
triggers in us, and then that's shared and transferred in this way where we have realizations
Hmm.
that, yeah, so
And I think anytime we are sharing something and we're teaching it, then we know it that much better ourselves. And
100%.
so, oftentimes it's also just content, right? Like Alan will be watching something and he'll send it to me and I'll watch it and then get something from it. And I'll be watching something and I'll send it to him. And so we have things that resonates with us individually, and then we also have
Mhm.
things that resonates collectively. And that
Mhm.
I think it's the most beautiful balance, right? It's like a marriage. When a person's in a marriage, they don't stop being themselves and just be the spouse of the other person. That would be very unhealthy. They continue to be
Mhm.
themselves, they continue to grow into who they are, and then they bring that person into the marriage, and then it helps grow and improve the marriage. And so,
Yeah.
community-wise, it's the same thing. We're not all turning into each other. Al and I are very, very different, and you can see that, and that's why we complement each other so well. and I don't really care to be more like Alan. There are parts of me that have grown because of Alan, and that's wonderful. And I have become more of him in some ways, but I want to be more of me. Alan's already
Mhm.
taken. Alan's taken by Alan. I want to be more of me. And if by growing beside him and learning from him and balancing myself out more because of his energy, it helps me be more of me, then that's a success. And I would say
Yeah.
that that's the same thing for everyone in a tribe, is how can we empower them to be more them by the influences of everyone else around.
Yeah, nice. So I know you guys do an open house one time per month, which is a great way to s- start to get to know the path
Hmm.
and your work. So that's I highly recommend that. Um, Tell us like what are some other ways for people to what like do you guys have some events coming up? Do you where can people kind of, you know, if they want to
Yeah,
learn more or whatever?
I'm going to point everybody to Alan's Instagram right now is most of where I spend my time developing my attention. And so that's a platform that you would be able to find the most amount of information on. So it's coach underscore Alan Howard. Go follow his Instagram. Mine is the John Collective. There's not much going on there because I'm focusing a lot on the brand right now of what we're
Mhm.
building for the business. But we have some exciting events coming up for the rest of the year. And then we have quite a couple of things to announce soon. So I'll give those things over to you and you can share it with your tribe and anybody else.
Yeah.
But there's some digital products that we're coming out with, and there's
Oh,
some new
cool.
ways that we're hopefully being able to reach men at different levels. So they're not, right now, our program is quite expensive, as it should be. But we want to be able to reach more people at different levels. And so we're opening that up in different ways. And I'm excited to share all of that very soon.
Awesome. Yeah. So it's called The Path.
Hmm.
And to start, people can follow Coach underscore Alan Howard. Is that how it is?
That's
Yeah.
correct.
And
Yep.
then he announces the monthly open houses, and
Hmm.
that's just a great way to start to get, you know, see what's going on with the path and
Yes.
John's work, and then
Yes.
the John Collective. I follow you. Yeah, like you're saying, your attention is not so much on creating content at this point in your career. I know you've
Hmm.
done podcast a lot of podcasting and stuff in the past, and I'm
Hmm.
excited to see you you know create more stuff. Um, yeah, I guess we've covered it. So thanks so much for being here, and I really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I always love chatting with you and the things that are explored. I'm so happy to see you step into who you are and the work that you've been doing in the last little while. And
Yeah.
I just know that you have such a genuine heart for people and to spread the ability for men to be reached and for communities to be built and for you to be able to help coaches do that. I think it's so great. And I love seeing you step into that and you and your power and seeing that and owning it and just running with it.
Thank you very much for that. So I'll
Hmm.
tag you in the recording on Facebook, and yeah, have a great day and have a great trip to Brazil. I'm excited to follow your adventure there.
Thank
So
you.
yeah. Okay, my friend. Bye for now.
Bye for now.